Before we talk about how to cook prime rib, let's talk about where it comes from on the beef. Well, there are 13 ribs, and 5 of them occur in the chuck. This is the shoulder area. The next 7 occur in the rib area, ribs 6 through 12, and there's one final rib in the loin. One other quick point about how a cow or beef is built. There are a lot of muscles up in the shoulder areas, a lot of work, a lot of energy. The front legs are connected, of course. As you get towards the back, there are fewer muscles, and that's going to determine a little bit about how we choose a cut to cook. So this is the head of the animal here in this direction. This is the back of the animal. This is the entire rib area. These are the first ribs, 6 through 10 here, and these are the ribs 10 through 12. So this is the back of the rib area, this is the front. This part, ribs 10 through 12, is referred to as the first cut. It's the preferred cut, and I'll explain why in a second. This is called the second cut. Again, it's the front of the rib area closer to the chuck. We've cut steaks off just to show you the difference between this cut and this cut. This comes from the second cut. You can see there are lots of different muscles here. Again, as I said, the front of the animal has more muscles, a lot of intermuscular fat. It's a messier cut. There's more fat in it. We don't like it quite as much. The first cut, which almost everyone prefers, is here, and this is a steak cut out of that. And you can see it's basically all one muscle, because as you go back in the cow, it simplifies into one muscle. There's less fat in it. It's actually a much better cut. So let's go into the kitchen with Julia and take the first cut, ribs 10 through 12, and figure out the best way to make the world's best prime rib. Dip into our email bag to start this recipe. This is from Anna. She writes, during more than one program we have watched, you have a 3-dimensional cow and back. Please have someone remove the udder. She spells it U-T-T-E-R, whatever.
I'm not going to do that one.
And neuter the animal. Or check with the slaughterhouse, because they don't use cows for our steaks. So it's true, there is an udder here, which would be incorrect.
Right.
So it was a choice between udder or pizzle. So we took udder. Or I guess we could neuter the cow. By the way, cows do have horns. I've been chased by many cows with long horns. Yes.
I don't want to know.
So the horns have nothing to do with whether there is an udder or not.
Oh.
This is utterly ridiculous. So let's
utterly fascinating.
Let's do prime rib.
Right. So now on to the best prime rib, and this is a 7-pound prime rib, bone-in. So there's about 3 bones, and the first thing we're going to do is actually remove the meat from the bones, which a lot of recipes don't do. But we found it makes the meat easier to maneuver when you brown it in a skillet. It also allows us to season the whole thing thoroughly. It makes it really easy to serve. So what you want to do is you want to stand it up, and using a very sharp knife, you want to just cut right along the bones, and then you open it up with your fingers and just take your time and follow the curvature of the bones down with every slice. And just very carefully take this expensive piece of meat off the bone. Now we're not going to throw these out. In fact, we're going to put this boneless roast back on the bones when roasting, because it acts as a nice insulator and will ensure that the roast cooks through evenly. So we're not going to throw those out. All right, so there we go.
So you know I can be a lazy cook. So this is extra work. So you're taking it off the bone so you can put it back on again? So explain that.
All right. Well, of course, before you roast it, you want a nice, crisp, golden exterior, and you get that by searing it in a skillet. And when the bones are on, it's a lot harder to maneuver around. Right. Also, we're about to salt it. We know the benefits of letting the salt sit on the meat over time. And if it's off the bone, you've doubled your surface area for seasoning the meat and getting it inside.
You always have good reasons. Okay.
And there's a third reason, which is when you serve it, it makes it very easy to make nice, even portions.
3. Let's see. 3 reasons. Okay.
All right. So before we salt the meat, we're going to make a quick cross-hatch pattern in the surface of this meat so the salt can really get in there. And again, using the sharp knife, you don't want to go too far into the meat, just through this fat cap. And about, an inch apart, just do a nice cross-hatch pattern. And then the fat, of course, is thicker in some areas and thinner in some areas, so as you cut, you can sort of monitor how deep you go. And I'll just move it and do it the other direction. All right, so now we're going to salt it. And this is 2 tablespoons of kosher salt. We're going to rub it evenly over both sides of the meat. And you really want to work it into the fat that you just scored so it can really get in there. Of course, we'll do the back side too. And the bottom. And a little bit on the sides. All right, just sort of mop up any salt left on the board with the roast itself. And now, of course, we're going to let it sit for at least 24 hours, but you could do it up to 4 days ahead of time. And to save space, I'm just going to put it back on the bone, put it on the plate, and we're going to refrigerate it uncovered for at least a day, but you could do this up to 4 days in advance. All right, so this meat has been salted for over 24 hours, and it's ready to get a nice sear, of course, before we throw it in the oven to roast it. So I'm going to take it off the bone, put it into the skillet, and there was just 2 teaspoons of vegetable oil in the skillet that we got nice and hot until it was just smoking. Now we're going to brown it on all the sides except for the cut side, because 1, we want to put it right back on the bones, and 2, when you get prime rib, you kind of want that bone side not to be so brown.
You know, we researched this recipe, and there were some chefs like Heston Blumenthal who got around this problem by using a blowtorch.
Yeah, that was fun time in the kitchen.
Well, I mean, it would work.
It would.
But nobody has a sufficiently large
It's a little bit more dangerous. Yeah. No, so we're just going to sear it for about 6 or 9 minutes, again, on all sides. And a trick, of course, to getting it on the bottom is you just stand here and you hold it up like that. So we'll get it seared on all sides except for the side that is touching the bone. All right, so this guy is nice and well browned. Now we're going to take him out of the skillet. It's just so much easier to handle without those bones on there. I'm going to put it back on the bones the way it was cut off. And I'm just going to let it cool for a few minutes before I tie the bones back on and we throw it back in the oven.
So that looks like kind of messy work.
A little bit.
So it's worth doing because there's just a lot of flavor.
Yeah, and it's a lot of money right here. This is an expensive piece of meat.
Now you went straight to my heart.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's an expensive piece of meat, and there's these few little steps that you do will really ensure that it comes out just right. And it's not a lot of ingredients. So far, just 3, the oil, the salt, and the beef. So not complicated, but just a few steps make it perfect. All right, so our brown roast has cooled off for a few minutes, and now we're going to tie it back to the bones before we start roasting. You just need 2 good pieces of twine. You'll tie it right between the bones. There's always that trick that you go around twice the first time and it kind of holds itself in place a little better. Works on Christmas gifts too.
Oh, you think I get Christmas presents?
I should know by now that you don't, right?
Scrooge.
All right, I'm just going to snip off these ends. All right, so we're going to season up with a little bit of pepper because, of course, so far it's only seen some salt. And we're going to put this onto a wire rack on a rim baking sheet. So now we're going to throw it in the oven. Now, the lower the temperature of the oven, the more moist and tender the meat was, and the more evenly cooked it was. And the lowest our ovens can go is 200 degrees. So we're going to roast it in a 200-degree oven for about 3 to 4 hours until it reaches 110. That's the internal temperature. And then we're going to let it climb those last few degrees even more slowly when the oven is off. So the best way to tell the temperature of the roast is to use one of these probes if you have one. And I have it preset to be 110. And I'm going to stick it into the center. And then we'll leave this, of course, outside the oven. The cord goes through the oven door and it lets us know when the roast is ready. And there we go. So it'll take about 3 or 4 hours till that reaches about 110 degrees.
The real thing.
All right, so it's been about 3.5 hours, and the internal temperature of our roast is 113, which is perfect. Now we're going to turn the oven off, and without opening the oven door or releasing any of the oven heat, we're going to let the roast hang out in there for another half an hour to an hour until you reach the right internal temperature, which for medium rare is 125.
So this is taking slow, gentle cooking to a new low.
It is. All right, so it's been a little over half an hour, and we can see the internal temperature of our roast is 127, which is perfect for medium rare. So now we're going to take out the roast and remove this probe. We're going to take this nice, oh, it's gorgeous. That's good. All right, so of course we have to let this rest for at least half an hour to up to an hour before we slice into it so those juices can redistribute. And we're going to tint it with foil. And there you have it.
I like this. This is, all the work happens in the store.
That's right.
Nothing happens in the kitchen. That's good. It's easy.
Now, our roast has been sitting here for a little over 30 minutes, and unfortunately, oh, it's gorgeous, but this crisp crust has gotten a little soggy under the steaming of the foil. So we're going to crisp it up really quickly under the broiler.
Have you ever heard the expression, leave well enough for mine? Is that where you're
I've heard the expression, but I've never really paid attention
Lived it,
to it.
you've never lived it.
It's not my style. So what I'm going to do is we're going to put this under the broiler just for a couple minutes to get it a little bit more crisp and have the broiler heating up. And to elevate this fat cap on the top, what we're going to do is take this foil ball, pop it right under the ribs so that it's a little bit more level so it can get nice and crisp under the broiler. And then it'll take anywhere from 2 to 6 minutes to get that crust back.
This is your clever cooking segment.
It is.
That's actually a very good idea.
So that roast has been under the broiler for a couple minutes. Oh, she's a beauty. Thank you. And she's ready to eat. No more resting required.
And you were right again.
Yeah.
It's worth that extra little bit.
Oh, that candy on top. All right, now the best part is that you can take it right off the bone, and it's super easy to slice and serve. So we're going to orient the roast that way so we get nice, round, perfect slices. Oh, perfectly cooked. This is going to taste good.
It tastes better than that, I suspect. Of course, you're not letting me eat anywhere near it, so
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I'll let you have the center slice.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, that's going to taste good. Thank you. And let's not forget our Brussels sprouts. And serve you some. And now there's 2 sauces that we have here that you can put on the meat. One is a salsa verde, and the other is a mustard cream sauce. Yeah, I'm going to go for the salsa verde too.
Yeah, well, I think it's a rich meat, so. Now, everybody from my state of Vermont's looking at this going like, can we cook it more?
Oh, really?
I love it like this.
Oh, this is perfect medium rare in my book.
Boy, that is perfectly cooked.
Oh, this is a meal fit for a king.
Well, thank you, Julia. She's never called me a king before.
And a princess.
Well, that's true.
Oh, those Brussels are good.
The Brussels sprouts have real flavor, roasted, which I love. Actually, I make them this way for Thanksgiving. They're terrific. And the meat is perfect. So the secret to great prime rib was to salt it and let it sit in the fridge uncovered for up to 4 days. Then put it into a very low oven, actually with the oven off for the last hour and a half or so. And that way the meat cooks very evenly, a lot of flavor development. Brussels sprouts, a little bit of water, salt, and pepper, 20 minutes, 10 minutes at 500 degrees, covered. Take the foil off, finish it at the same temperature. There you have it. From America's Test Kitchen, your kitchen, these 2 recipes, prime rib and roasted Brussels sprouts, along with the 2 sauces. All of the recipes from this season are tasting results, testing results. You can also watch selected episodes of the show at our website, americastestkitchentv.com. I bet Calvin Coolidge in this.
Who?
No, he's my favorite person, hands down.
Who's president?
Yeah.